And it is 5:01. We'll get started with
This conference will now be recorded.
Thanks, Creed, for turning that on. So, Christy Ransom, would you please read the statement we need to do for electronic meetings, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if there's no objection, then the Board of Health will meet electronically, declaring that it's a necessity to hold this meeting as such due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is in accordance with the Executive Order number 71 issued by Governor Lee.
Thank you, Christy. Is there any objecting to the meeting tonight by the electronic means we've got? I hear none. To make this meeting flow a little bit better tonight, I asked Brian to kind of lead us through the agenda. I think he's got a screen he can look at as opposed to me working off of my cell phone. Brian?
Yes, sir. We'll do that. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 19th.
I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you. This is Christy. We need to take a roll call so we can establish the quorum, please.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so when I call your name, if you could respond as being present. Rogers Anderson,
Present.
Charlie Beecham,
Present.
Cindy Howes, Cindy, I see you. Can you respond as being present? I see you talking. Okay, there you go. I got your thumbs up. Thank you. Gary Owen.
Present.
Thank you. Marty Myers.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Stillwell.
Present.
Thank you. Rhonda Watson. Rhonda, I can see you. Just there you go. Thank you.
I'm here.
Thank you. Kathy Montgomery. I do not see Kathy. Dr. Bastian.
Present.
Thank you. Mandy Thompson.
Present.
Thank you.
Present.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so we've got nine board members present. So I guess now we'll move on to the agenda item number 1, which would be approval of the minutes from the January 19th, 2021 meeting. Rogers?
We'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Do I have that?
So
I'll
moved.
make that motion.
I'll need a name to go with them.
Charlie Beecham.
Do I have a second, please?
Gary Owen would second.
Thank you. We're going to do a roll call vote on the minutes. I think, Brian, if you would handle that, please.
Yes, sir. So approval of the minutes, Rogers Anderson,
Approve.
Charlie Beecham,
Approved.
Cindy Howes. Gotcha, Cindy. Thank you. Gary Owen.
Approve.
Thank you. Marty Myers.
Approved.
Thank you. Dr. Stillwell.
Approved.
Thank you. Rhonda Watson.
Approve.
Thank you. Kathy's not here. Sam Bastian.
Approved.
Thank you. And Mandy Thompson.
Approve.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Rogers, you got nine approved.
Let the minutes reflect the minutes were approved by the vote tonight. Next, Brian.
Okay, so agenda item number 2, this is the deferred item from the January 19th meeting of last month. And this is request approval for the installation of an experimental primary and secondary advanced treatment system, along with several setback reductions and curtain drain elimination to serve an existing structure so as to allow its renovations to proceed. The applicant is Tyler McCullough. The property is at 5519 Sycamore Street in Leapersfort, Tennessee. Rogers, do you want me to go ahead and give the presentation, or do you want to get it on the floor?
Let's get it on the floor. Do I have a motion to accept this? If so, I need a name.
D. Stillwell, so move.
Do I have a second?
Martin Myers, second.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me go ahead and get, Roger, do I need to do the roll call now or after the presentation?
Do a quick presentation, seeing how this is a continuation from last month.
Okay, very good. So if y'all will remember, last month we deferred this item from the meeting. There was some questions from an adjacent neighbor regarding proper notice to see if everyone, the adjacent property owners to this property were properly notified. And so just to kind of use extreme caution and make sure that we got everyone notified, we deferred this item until this meeting to allow us the chance to do more notification. So we did that. We actually notified all the adjacent property owners 2 weeks in advance instead of the normal 1 week in advance. We sent the letters out to their as a actual physical address, and also if there was a second address that they wanted their correspondence to go to, we mailed it there as well. So we did it, like I said, a whole week in advance. We have not heard from any of the adjacent neighbors since regarding this particular meeting. The applicant, though, Mr. McCullough, has gone and talked to all the adjacent neighbors or several of the adjacent neighbors, and several of them had received the notification, so we know that it did get out properly. So that being said, everyone should have their packet from the last meeting, and I went through great detail about the request. I'm not going to go in that much detail tonight, just kind of give you a little cursory review. This particular property, the applicant began some renovations to the house, and it was pretty extensive renovations and became structural. Because of that, he was going to have to bring the system into compliance with current regulations, and that's something once we got consultants involved, the soil scientists and engineers, that's something that we couldn't get done because of the lack of good, sufficient quality soil. And so the proposal was to do an advanced treatment system to clean up the wastewater. It was a Quanix aerosol system, clean up the wastewater ahead of time, and then do a modified low pressure pipe system in the backyard. And so there were some setback reductions associated with that, and we listed those in the report and went over those in great detail at the last meeting. The applicant has got, like I said, several consultants involved, engineering with T-Square Engineering, representatives from T-Square are here if there's any questions. Soil scientists looked at the property, and the surveyor also. They have presented all of their information to us. We reviewed it, and we're very happy with the progress and the status of the design plans. And so we have recommended approval for this experimental system. It'll give the applicant a good primary system to serve their needs for many, many years. And there's also a plan in place for a secondary system. We do not see any potential for adverse impacts to public health or the environment with this, and so staff recommends its approval. Mr. McCullough, the applicant, is here and he can answer any questions. Also, the engineering firm is here, and I can also ask any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions of the board members on this item tonight? I see none. Brian, would you do the roll call, please?
Sure, Roger. Do you want to have a motion for approval?
We've already got that, I think.
Got that? Okay, very good. So Rogers Anderson.
Approved.
Okay. Charlie Beecham.
Approve.
Thank you. Cindy Howes. Thank you, Cindy. Gary Owen.
Approve.
Thank you. Marty Myers.
Approved.
Thank you. Dr. Stillwell,
Approve.
thank you. Rhonda Watson,
Approve.
thank you. Kathy is not here. Sam Bastian,
Approved.
thank you. Mandy Thompson,
Approve.
all right, thank you. Okay, Rogers, it was unanimous.
Thank you, Brian. Let the records reflect the agenda passed unanimously. Next item, Brian.
Yes, sir. So agenda item number 3 is a request, a variance for the use of an experimental secondary advanced treatment system, along with several setback reductions associated with the designation of both primary and secondary system areas to serve an existing structure so as to allow its renovations to proceed. The applicant is Robin Kitchell. The property is 7186 Brush Creek Road in Fairview. So again, this is, hope everyone had a chance to review the packet of information that I sent out to you that gives you some background on this. It's very similar to the last item that we just talked about. We've been working with the applicant for that past year and a half or so regarding some extensive renovations to their property on Brush Creek Road. Very similar situation. They made an application with the department to do these renovations, and upon processing that application, we realized that it was a much more extensive in nature than originally applied for. Part of the house was gutted, some interior walls removed, some exterior work was already underway, and because of this extensive structural nature of this work, the county codes compliance department issued a stop work order on the property until all the proper permits could be obtained. Regarding the septic, there was no records of the existing septic system on this property. We couldn't confirm the integrity or the installation standards. We even had an installer kind of do a little exploratory work to try to find out about it. And it's just something that we could not approve. So according to the information that the applicant provided us, when they complete all these renovations, the structure will remain 3 bedrooms with 2 baths, no oversized tub. But again, because of the nature of this, it requires that the existing system be abandoned and new systems put in that meet all the regulations, primary and secondary areas and usable soils, and meeting all the setback standards. And that's kind of where the challenges arise, again, is finding a sufficient amount of usable soil to accomplish that goal. I also note in this area, there was no sewer service available, and there was no chance to do an off-site easement. So the only real opportunity was to look at some kind of experimental type approach. So again, this applicant retained the services of various consultants, soil scientists, engineers, surveyors, and went through the same process looking at soils. The soil scientist, in this case, he was able to find good soil on the property. So that's a little different than most of these applications that I bring to you. Most of them don't have any good soil. But in this particular case, the soil scientist found 2 pretty good size areas of good soil that qualify for standard systems. However, when you start applying all the setbacks associated with those areas, it shrinks those areas down so much that they're not big enough to meet today's standards for approval under the current regulations. So one of the main aspects of this variance request is to reduce several of those setback standards so that we can enlarge the size of that area to put in a good system. And so I'm going to read real quick the setbacks so that they're into the record. There's 6 of the setback reductions. The first one being reducing the designated septic field areas to the property lines from 20 feet to 10 feet. Reducing the designated septic field areas from the barn, it's kind of a barn shed, from 25 feet to 8 feet. Reduce the septic field areas distance from an overhead electric line from 25 feet to 20 feet. Reduce the setbacks of the tank from a proposed deck, from 10 feet to 5 feet. And then the curtain drain, reducing it from the septic field from 15 feet to 10 feet. And then finally reducing the setback from the curtain drain to the overhead electric line from 10 feet to 5 feet. So not major setback reductions, but a little bit. It's important to note that most of these adjustments would conform to the era of the property, so kind of conform to what the old regulations would be back when this property would originally came into being. And it's similar to the other setbacks in that general area. So when we were able to do that, one of the areas in the far back right portion of the property actually became big enough to meet the regulations on sizing for a standard system. So that we're proposing to do a standard low pressure pipe system. If I can pull up on the screen real quick, I'll show you where that's at. Just a second. Yeah, here we go. So on the screen, you'll be able to see kind of this area where my cursor is. This is the primary area. And so by doing those setback reductions, we're able to get a standard low pressure pipe system fit into that area. They'll have to do a little remediation work to the surface of the soil just to get a better layout, but it doesn't even require any major modification. We can still have a curtain drain to protect it from surface and subsurface water, and get a full-size compliant system. So it will not be an experimental system. It doesn't require any kind of advanced treatment for it. So it would be just a standard system. The other area, which is down in this kind of lower right-hand corner, closer to the road, when we apply those setback standards, it's still not quite big enough to meet the regulations on sizing of an area. It's about 35% less than what we need. And so that one's the one that gives us a little bit of a challenge. However, the engineer was able to lay out enough footage of field line, so they were able to put enough footage of line in that area. It just doesn't have all the buffer that we normally would require for today's standards. And so to justify using that area, to mitigate any concerns associated with kind of that small area, and also its proximity to a real steep gully, the secondary, we are proposing to do an advanced treatment system to clean that wastewater up prior to going into that soil. And so it's the advanced treatment system. It too is a Quanix aerosol system, just like what we've approved the previous application and what you've seen several times before. So the Quanix is the foam cube in the module. And so that will clean up the wastewater to secondary quality standards. It'll have all the safeguards, just like we do on normal experimental systems. It has to be NSF approved, meet the state guidelines for operation and maintenance, perpetual operation and maintenance, sampling, legal agreement, all those kind of standard things. The disposal field itself, nothing special about it. It'll be a standard low pressure system as well. There's no need to do any remediation to the soil. It's really good soil, just not quite big enough, like I mentioned before. And so again, in this particular situation, the applicant has hired those various consultants. They've submitted all of their stuff to us, the survey work, the engineering work, the soil work. We're very, very comfortable with the status of that. It's ready to be approved pending the outcome of this meeting. And so we're very comfortable with where it sits right now. So the remaining items is finishing up the design after this meeting, finishing up the survey work. Again, since it's experimental, this is something that the board would have to approve. Again, all experimental systems would require a legal agreement that's recorded against the deed of the property so that any future owners know what the restrictions and requirements are. Again, I mentioned perpetual operation and maintenance by a licensed service provider is going to be required. And that includes sampling. And again, since it's secondary, they don't have to do this right now, but at the time that they go to permit that secondary system, it's when they'd have to hire those service providers. So again, based on the site and soil conditions and this plan of action, the department doesn't see any potential adverse impacts to the protection of public health or the environment. We're very comfortable with it. This will give the owners a very good, solid primary system and a good plan for a secondary system if and when that primary system would ever fail. So as such, we recommend approval of this request. And I know that the applicant was on the line earlier, and I don't know if she's still here or not. She was. But I also, the engineering firm's here, so Any of us can answer any questions if there are any. Chairman Anderson?
Thank you, Brian, for the first explanation. I'll entertain a motion to get it forward, then I'll ask for questions. Do I have a motion, please, with your name?
Gary Owen, motion of approval.
Thank you, Gary.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. So are there questions that you might want to ask Brian or any of the consultants, engineers that are on this call tonight? I don't hear any. So in that case, Brian, would you do the roll call on this agenda item?
Yes, sir. Rogers Anderson?
Approved.
Thank you. Charlie Beecham?
Approve.
Thank you. Cindy House? Thank you, Cindy. Gary Owen?
Approve.
Thank you. Marty Myers?
Approve.
Thank you. Dr. Stillwell?
Approve.
Thank you. Rhonda Watson?
Approve.
Thank you. Kathy is not here. Sam Bastian?
Approve.
Thank you. And Mandy Thompson?
Approve.
Thank you. Okay, Rogers, you have a unanimous approval.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all for let the minutes reflect it was unanimous. Next, Brian.
So the only thing is that concludes really everything on the agenda tonight. The next monthly meeting is March 16th at 5 p.m. Rogers, unless you have some announcements.
Let me go ahead and make a few announcements. So many of you are following the snow, the ice, the sleet. So we've been meeting daily, several times a day. Excuse me, to discuss the situations that we have in our county made to the roads and the weather. Today, the decision was made to cancel county services. That would include all the elected offices where you get your car tags, the clerk's office, the election office, trustees, and et cetera, all the way around. So everything will be canceled for tomorrow. Also, we will reevaluate our standings on all of this tomorrow at between 12 and 1 o'clock. We've had a multitude of people indicate to us throughout the area the conditions, and so that we're all on the same page. Schools are also closed through tomorrow. The decision will be made as to future cancellations sometime during the day tomorrow. I should also say that you that are cleaning out your closets, the convenience centers are closed also, so they will not be there. The problem with the convenience centers is the problem with most other areas. We can't get in to clean it, salt it, and make it a sound, secure area for people to throw their items out. And so that will also be closed tomorrow. The animal center will also be closed. We currently do not have any animals in the shelter, except those that are in there for legal matters, in which we have staff coming in a four-wheel Jeep to feed and take care of those animals. Our 911 centers, our hospital personnel, we have arranged for many people to, the Sheriff's Department is helping. Our Public Safety Committee members are helping to pick up employees and transport them back and forth from their homes. We have secured rooms in one of the motels here in town for those employees that live a great distance away from where they work. We have secured places for them to stay all night and be fed so they can go back to work the next day. The 911 center, many of them are working 12-hour shifts. Our highway department, when you see one of those 13 trucks working on 730 miles of unincorporated road, I would encourage you to say thank you to them. as you would probably guess at this particular time, with the weather being down at 17 degrees, or it was just a few moments ago. Salt doesn't help us a great deal on with our roads, but they are continuing to scrape along with the state, and the cities do their individual contracts throughout the area. Our hospital personnel, I guess Sam could give us a better update on the hospital, but the services at the hospital on elective surgeries have been canceled. Is that, just nod for me, Sam? They've been canceled for.
Elective surgery is canceled, but everything else is going on.
Right.
The clinics are closed. The hospital and clinics.
That's correct. We continue to see a high volume of ER visits, slips and falls, elbows, shoulders, people just going out for routine walks with or without their dogs are finding that it's very painful when they come down unexpectedly. And of course, the sledding incidents, we've had one of those today. The individual was rescued, but did manage to find that sled, or one of those round things wound up in a pond with this individual on it. So we continue to see those challenges. Our homeless community, for you that are interested in that, we have secured through private sources through the community church here in town. There's 10 individuals in our hotel. 5 of those 10 are children, and the others are adults. And that is provided through private funding in our community. Vonna over at First United Methodist oversees that program for us. So I think I've given you a snapshot of about everything that's going on. Well, I haven't. The vaccines have been postponed again for tomorrow. So if you were scheduled to have your second shot, you will be contacted to try to arrange to have that second shot in the next few days. We've extended, provided this weather gets out of here, we'll extend our vaccine site out at the Ag Park from a half a day on Saturday to a full day, hopefully to be able to make up some of these shots and get them all in the prescribed time. So with that being said, I'll entertain any questions if you have any. But I do want to say thanks to so many people, and 911 centers, our public safety people, our highway department, and certainly our healthcare community that continue to provide the safety we need. And then finally, the sheriff's department, the many runs that him and his men and women are making in our community and all of our law enforcement community in our cities. Any questions? Well, thank you again for being on here. This is one time electronic meetings came in handy, that we were able to have this. We've learned a lot through the last year in our pandemic and mask and no mask. And now we're learning a little bit about how the people up north have to live. And I don't like any of it. I'm ready for summer to get here. They can have that northern snow and ice and sleet, and I'll just take the rain and the pretty Tennessee weather. Nothing else for the good of the cause. We will adjourn and see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.